Let me thank everyone for coming out. We want to honor your time, and so we're going to get started now so that we can conclude this very important discussion on time, and we can make sure we have plenty of time to get everyone's thoughts in on this. I want to thank you all for being a part of this, being here tonight to be a part of this very important discussion in life of our community. I want to tell you that I said this last year, and I'll say it again over and over again this year, that there is not a more important priority in the city of Denver than the work we're doing to provide affordable housing in the city of Denver. This city is seeing unprecedented growth. Anywhere from 7,500 to 10,000 people are moving to this city every year. And with that growth, and the fact that we have not, during the recession, we didn't have much construction around housing. And of course, we had the housing debacle occur in the finance industry. We now have an amazing run on housing. And in fact, today I was in a luncheon where I heard one developer tell us about a major apartment complex that he owns, that he just rehabbed, and it's at 98% occupancy, which is absolutely just unheard of when you think about apartment complexes with a couple of hundred units in them. And so we certainly understand the challenge that people are facing today, and we're trying to get our hands around some of the most important steps we can take as a city to begin to effectively deal with the challenge of affordable housing and demand of affordable housing. So your presence here tonight is no small thing. This is very important in the life of our community, and your voice is going to be very important as we construct some of our next steps. Before I go any further, let me just acknowledge a few folks who are here tonight to show you how important this conversation is. First of all, I'll ask you to join with me in thanking East High School for opening up this facility to allow us to be here tonight. We also want to thank our Channel 8 and facility staff that came early to set up and make sure we're able to roll, so thank them as well. I want to thank the city council members who are here. You're going to hear from Councilwoman at Large, Robin Kniech, but she has absolutely been a champion of affordable housing, and we want to thank Councilwoman Kniech. I also understand that Councilwoman at Large, Debbie Ortega, is here somewhere. Where are you? There she is, there in the audience. Thank you, Councilwoman. And I just saw Councilman Lopez in the corner. Councilman Paul Lopez from District 3 is here. Councilman Albus Brooks would be here tonight, but he's actually addressing the issue of affordable housing with a major project in his district right now. And so we know he's in another community meeting on the other side of York Street. And so we will work. He has been a tremendous champion on this issue, and we want to thank Councilman Lopez. I think if he gets a chance to make it here before we conclude, he will be here. So let me frame this for you, and I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone else. But more importantly, thank all of you for being here. We have several officers of the mayor here. Human Rights and Community Relations is here. Derek Okubo is going to lead us through the meeting. Office of Economic Development here, our funding arm, in helping us to provide funding for affordable housing. And actually, our volunteers from all the commissions in the city and county of Denver are here as well. I want to thank all of our city staff. I see our Community Relations Director here, Evan Dreyer, our Deputy Chief of Staff, who's been working on affordable housing, is also here. This is a team effort, and I know I see around the room several of our community partners who work with us on affordable housing for being here. So let's frame this real quick. So what we're going to try to do is today we got a brief conversation here, and then we're going to break up because there's so many people in this room. The best way to hear from folks is to get you into smaller groups to do that. So there'll be small breakout groups for discussion, and then we're going to come back and report back on those discussions so that we can gather the information and everybody can hear what has occurred in these small groups. As I pointed out, in framing this, we must understand what's happening. This city is leading the nation in terms of growth and economic revitalization following the recession. Our unemployment rate is less than 3% today in the city of Denver, which means that we have more people, there are more jobs than there are people to fill them. And as a result, we're attracting a lot of folks moving into our city, looking for the opportunity at those jobs because they're good paying jobs, but also meaning that the demand for housing has increased. So that's happening, but again, you got to think that we didn't have much construction of residential properties during the recession. And at the same time, with this growth creating the demand, we have a major problem. You can begin to see the deficit being created. So what we've done is, in 2013, I challenged the city as well as nonprofits and our partners, banks, to create what we called a 3x5. It was a 3x5 challenge, and the goal was to create 3,000 new affordable housing units in 5 years. The goal, in setting that goal, it wasn't thinking that that would solve the problem. It really was to encourage folks to pay attention to the fact that this is a problem. And if we don't begin to partner and collaborate on it, we're going to fall further and further behind, because growth was occurring in the city at levels that we had not seen before in the city's history. So what we've done today with regards to that challenge is we've seen 1,700 units develop in just under 3 years. And we have 1,200 that are under construction today. We're actually trending ahead of that goal of 5,000 in 3 years. Just last week, for example, we had an additional 156 units, rental units at the Park Hill Station at 40th and Colorado, and that coincided with the new train that opened up, started running between downtown and Union Station. Just yesterday, Councilwoman Kniech and I did a groundbreaking for 60 units for our most vulnerable homeless at the Sanderson Apartments off of Federal Boulevard. And so we are doing these type of things. The units are coming, just not fast enough. There's some other things that we've done. Is since 2012, my team has been putting money from the general fund budget away for affordable housing. We've been doing it at a clip about $3 million a year, but because the city performed so well last year, we put $8 million into the 2016 budget. We now have a revolving loan fund, about $10 million, that we use to partner with our developers to develop affordable housing. We also modified the city's preservation ordinance to those units that have been deed restricted. The city now has first right of refusal when the owners go to the market to resell those properties. That's huge to retain and to preserve affordable housing units in the city of Denver. We're also taking other actions, like you may have heard the term construction defects. The city has been at the state legislature. I've testified year after year trying to encourage the state legislature to modify the construction defects law so that our developers feel comfortable in developing affordable housing condos or multifamily units. They won't do it with the state law in place. It creates too much of a litigious, unpredictable environment for them, and so they're not building them. One thing that you can help with right away is to go to your email at the end of this session when you get home and you write your state legislator and you tell them it's important that we address construction defect this session so that we can encourage the development of multifamily units in the city and county of Denver. Now, where are we going? We're here to discuss a plan that we're unveiling that we hope to enact next year. The goal is to invest some $150 million over the next 10 years to build 6,000 affordable housing units in the city of Denver. How do we get there? You're going to learn a lot about that tonight. In 2013, you and I went to the ballot, and we agreed to de-Bruce the city to fix a structural problem we had in our finances. What you did was release some mills that you're already being charged for, but we were rebating those of us, all of us who had real property in the city. We were being rebated on paper a certain level of our property taxes. We did not deploy all of those mills, and this $15 million would come from us going back to pull one of those mills forward, as well as create a new strategy around development in the city called service impact fees that would be put into a fund to support the development of up to $15 million a year for affordable housing. This is a big step, as I heard today, a big step in solving a big problem. It doesn't completely solve the problem, but it allows the city to take a bold step forward to saying we're making a commitment to address one of our top priorities in the city of Denver. And until we begin to make an impact on the number of folks in our city who need decent, affordable housing, we're going to keep trying to do everything we can to provide affordable housing in the city of Denver. And so your input tonight is very important. I, again, want to thank you all for coming out. Please feel free to open up, share your thoughts, any other ideas you have, what you may have seen from cities you've lived in. But we're all in this together. And hopefully, through your conversation tonight and through some of the good thinking of our finance team, who I see here as well, we'll be able to chart a path forward to do some good, effective, collaborative work.
Hi, everyone. Can I have the staff who have the cards in their hands, can they make themselves seen? If you need a card to put a comment, white card, or if you need a colored card to do questions, please raise your hand and the staff will find you. Keep it in the air. Keep it in the air. It's okay. And I just want to do one last call. Is there anyone who needs an interpreter? Because we'll probably let the interpreter go. ¿Hay alguien que necesita interpretación de español? Okay. If you do, come forward now. So I want to just say for a moment, thank you. We read a lot about government and politics in the newspaper and on television, especially during an election year. The collaboration that's occurring between this mayor and this city council on the issue of housing is an example of when people really can work together on something. So I want to personally thank the mayor for how inclusive he's been to co-host these meetings and to be leading this process with council members at the table. And to my colleagues, Councilwoman Ortega and Councilman Lopez, this is an entire council priority, and they have all helped to shape the ideas that you're about to hear about. So I have the pleasure of being up here, but I really represent a bigger group of people who care. So some of you have asked about what is the need for affordable housing? Well, you've already answered. This room has already agreed it's a critical need, but this just gives you the numbers. So the black row here, this shows you what rent has been doing. Rent is going which direction? Everybody point with me. Which direction's rent going? Great. Now this one you may not have known, but if you were to take a guess which direction federal funding's going, which direction would you point? You would all be right. Excellent job. This group is ahead of the curve. So when we talk about what affordability means for a family, we use this term area median income, but what it means is that the housing, two things. One is that the housing is made affordable for a family at a particular income level, okay? And two, it's restricted at that level for a number of years. Could be 20 years, could be 30 years, could be 40 years. For today's purposes, we are talking about families earning less than about $64,000 a year for a family of 4. Everybody on this chart, families of 1, 2, and 3, you can't see the numbers really well. I know it's a crowded room, so thank you for your patience. But we're talking about families earning less than $64,000 a year. And each of the housing prices we talk about are different for each of those income levels. So it's not just one kind of housing. We already had some questions come forward. Is this about public housing? It includes the housing for the lowest income and for the homeless. But when we mean affordable, we also mean affordable for workers, like nurse techs and folks like that, for construction workers, for the food service workers who might work in this cafeteria. And when we mean affordable, we mean all of those levels in that area, okay? So what are we going to do? As the mayor mentioned, we know that in spite of all the progress we're making, we need to do more. And so let me show you the visual of how this is going to work. 2 new funding sources that you're going to hear about that put together create a new fund. This is new. We've never had a fund that the same money went into it every year. And we are in good times now, right, as a city, and we've been able to put in money for housing. But we want to make sure that housing money gets in the budget every year, no matter what, good times and bad, because it takes a couple years to build housing. We don't want to be, we want to be able to plan for the future. And so the idea is that if you have this fund and you put money in it every year for 10 years, you have a really reliable way to build more housing for folks. We can't build our way out of the problem, but it won't get better if we don't build more. We know that. And so we talked about $150 million a minimum in the first 10 years, and we talk about building 6,000 new affordable homes. At all of these levels we talked about, permanent housing for the homeless, low-income and moderate worker housing, rental housing, as well as moderate-income home ownership. We want families who are able to get into home ownership to be building that wealth. So we're talking about all of those types of housing coming out of this fund. So now I'm going to go ahead and talk about the 2 different sources of the fees. first I want to talk about a development fee. This is a fee that is charged per square foot on new construction. As new construction comes out of the ground, it's creating new jobs, right? If you're a commercial construction, if you're maybe like, let's say you're building a movie theater, you're creating jobs for the people who take tickets, for the people who run the film, for the people who clean up after. Each of those people needs housing. If you're building a residential development, the people who live in that house are going to go shopping and they're going to go to restaurants. And those are going to create jobs. And all of those jobs create more demand for housing. So a development fee basically charges new construction to help build some of the housing that it's creating the need for. So it's looking forward, this development fee is, and it's helping us to build housing for the workers who come out of the projects that are built. And it's charged per square foot. It's a one-time fee, okay? So next slide. So there's two different kinds of construction we have in the city. We have commercial, which is office, it might be the movie theater I described, retail, hotel, industrial. We have a lot of warehouses. All of those job creators are under the commercial head. These are really common fees used in some big cities, right? So Boston has had one of these for a long time. Seattle's in the process of putting one of these into effect on commercial development. There's also a residential fee that we can have, and the residential fee is used a little more often in resort communities with really expensive housing, but big cities like Denver that are having a crunch like we are looking to this more and more. It's always charged on apartments, it's always charged on condos, but it can also be charged on single-family homes. It can be charged on some of the scrape-offs that are occurring. It can be charged on duplexes. So we're going to talk more about what you think about that as we move forward. So that's how the development fee works. Now you may be wondering, how much is this fee? How much is it per square foot? Who would love to know how much it is per square foot? Raise your hand. Great. Can't tell you. I know, it's such a bad lead-in, but here's why. We have to do an economic study, and that economic study is going to tell us what the legal limits of what we can charge are. And it's also going to put some projects through some modeling so that we can actually see what the impact of different fees is on construction financing. So when we're done with that economic study, we are going to establish what that fee is, and we're going to have another public meeting in a much bigger venue. I don't know, we might need to get the convention center at this point. And we're going to get you all back together, and we're going to tell you what that proposed fee is long before it's adopted by the council. So you're here now early. Have you ever heard that everything's always cooked before there's a public meeting? You're right here now with our half-cooked turkey. We're here with you early, asking for your feedback early, because we know we want to get it throughout the process. So we will tell you more about that fee when it's ready. And then this little bubbles that we had up here, these just show you the steps they go through in the study, which is they count how many employees you have per square foot, and they count all the housing that they need, and that's how we come up with the fee. So now we're going to move on to the second source. So source number one-time fee on development, okay? Development in the city is not a consistent thing. It's high in a time like now. Anyone live here through some bust times in Denver, right? When everything was slow, there was not a crane. I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. Denver has booms and it has busts, right? We're a western city. So during those bust times, it's not a very reliable source of funding for housing. So we can't just go with something like a development fee by itself. We need to have it paired with something that's more reliable if we really want to have a fund that has consistency to it. So the second source we're going to talk about is a small portion of the property tax. And the mayor actually did a really good job already describing this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But the short story is, as he mentioned, you already gave us permission as a city to collect and keep more property tax mills. This is a fancy term that our finance director can help us with if anyone wants to ask with your question card. But it's, you already gave us permission to collect and keep these mills, and we have not been activating them. We've not been using them. So we're talking about a small portion that we might dedicate to housing. Up to 1 mill is the term, and we're going to get past that term really quickly. The most we could gain from the property tax under this proposal is $13 million, but we might go for less because we have that development fee too, and the two are designed to work together. So go ahead to the next slide. You're probably wondering, how much would this cost me? I'm a property owner in Denver. It would cost at the most $4 for every $50,000 of your home value. So if you have a home value of $300,000, which is a little bit less probably than the median is today with our crazy market, we're talking about less than $24 a year. If we did half a mil, it could be as little as $12 a year. So we're talking about a very small amount from each individual in this room, but when you put that together, the ability to make an impact on housing is really large. So our goal here is to have a small fee or a small property tax amount that can really add up to a lot, but not burden any one owner. There's a commercial formula as well, $290 for every $1 million in value. So that's what the most it could be. But again, we might do a half mil, we might do a quarter. So these numbers are the maximum that it could cost individuals. The reality could be less when we come back with that final proposal. And again, we're going to do that before we take this package to the council so that you all have a chance to give us your feedback. So let's imagine those two sources put together. Don't worry so much about the numbers on this slide. The only point here is that the numbers change every single year. I can't tell you for sure how much the city will collect in 1 year from a development fee because it'll be different each year based on how much is built. But putting the two together, we know that we would have. So the blue here is the property tax. So if you're someone who says, why is the property tax in this at all? You can see in this slide because the property tax is stable. The property tax makes this a reliable source. The red here is the development fee, and it goes up and it goes down. So together, that's what these funds could look like. This is not an actual prediction. It's just kind of to show you an example of putting them together. So we're going to talk now for a second about how this money would be used. We are talking about at least $150 million. We believe that could build at least 6,000 units of housing. And we talked already about all three levels. There's different ways you can do this. In some cities, they go ahead and they say you must spend a third of it on housing for people at this income, and you must spend a half of it on housing for this income. And then what happens is sometimes the economy changes. We didn't know the foreclosure crisis was going to come a few years ago, and if we put all this money into rental right now, and we have a foreclosure crisis, we don't want to leave families hanging who could be kept in their homes, right? So we want to create some flexibility. This is a permanent fund. It's intended to last through many economic cycles, so we want to be able to adjust with those cycles. So this is a proposal to spend money in all of these areas, but not to freeze it permanently and say how many units in each area from the outset. So the governance for this fund, this is a huge trust that you place in us. It's my deepest responsibility as an elected official. I know the mayor. We take this home at night and we know that your dollars that you spend as taxpayers or that developers might pay as fees, we have to do the very best with them that we can, and we need to make sure that we're accountable and transparent. And so we are intending to create a body of representatives that includes housing experts and some community representation to help oversee how these funds are spent. This body would make recommendations to the city. It would see reports to see whether we're on track with what we told you we wanted to build, and it would report back to the public and engage them. So that governance is really important. There would be plans. So even though we won't put in the law how much is going to get built, we're going to tell you at the beginning of each year, here's what we think is going to happen this year. This year, housing for the homeless is really important, and so we're going to put a lot of funds into housing for the homeless this year. Or this year, we have a great opportunity to do workforce rental for folks earning $20,000 or $30,000 a year, and that's going to be a big piece of what we do. So each year, there will be a process. You will have a chance. This body will have its minutes on a website. They will be open meetings, and it will be a very transparent process. So that's how we plan to manage these funds. With that, I want to go ahead and go through the schedule for you, what's going to happen next. That economic study I mentioned should be back in June. It'll be reported and shared with the City Council at an open meeting. In July, we expect to have a finalized proposal of what the mill for property tax should be and what the development fees could be, and then we will do a second meeting. And then in the late summer, we hope to have a City Council debate. This City Council process includes some comment periods. We could have a public hearing at the council. We can do a courtesy hearing. You will not be seeing this on your ballot, however. Both of the funding sources we've described are both sources that the City Council and the mayor have the power to adopt an ordinance. They don't require a vote of the people because we're talking about using existing property tax, not new property tax, existing tax that's available. And that was, as we said, already something the mayor gave on the ballot for us to have permission to do. And then the money starts to flow in 2017. This mayor has been more generous than any mayor in history. He's put $14 million into affordable housing to get us to today. And that's the money we're going to use until these funds start flowing. So we're fortunate that even though these funds don't flow till 2017, we do have funding today. With that, I'm going to go ahead and transition us to answering some questions. So I think that Evan Dreyer has been handing out some questions, and we're going to take some turns. So we will see. I'm going to pull the mic off. We're all going to stay up front here for Channel 8, but we are going to stay up front here for Channel 8, but we're going to pass the mic. And each of these individuals who's going to participate, the first time you answer a question, I'm going to ask you to please introduce yourself. For those of you who are excited to weigh in on these proposals, after this question and answer period, you are going to have a chance to do another clicker survey and share what you think about some of the things you heard. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Evan Dreyer.
Hi, everybody. I have a propensity to walk around too, but I'm going to try to hold still. We have been collecting your cards and keep the cards coming. We're going to try to answer as many of them as we can. A lot of the questions are similar, so we may try to consolidate some of the multiple questions that are similar into one or two, just to try to be efficient with everybody's time. So I'm going to go ahead and take a couple of these. Here's the question. Why are there 2 to 3 year waiting lists to get into affordable housing? And I've seen a few cards with that same question, and it really is a supply and demand problem. The mayor talked about the numbers of people that have been moving into Denver over the last few years. We've seen 10,000 to 15,000 people moving into Denver, and we just don't have the stock of affordable housing to meet that kind of a demand. So the purpose of this new permanent fund is to create 6,000 new affordable units in the next 10 years. And that, as the mayor said, as Councilwoman Kniech said, it's a bite out of an apple, but we know it's not enough, but it's a big step forward for us. Here's another question. Can the city explore opportunities to create a density bonus so new development can create even more affordable housing? So I'm just going to briefly try to explain what a density bonus is. Under our zoning and planning rules, if a development is zoned for 200 units, do we have an ability to allow that developer to build more than 200 apartments or housing units? And that's something that we certainly could explore. I think we would want to ensure that in exchange for allowing a developer to increase the number of units or the density of the development, that we get something back in return, and that value in return could be an additional number of affordable housing units. And that's certainly a concept that is in play in other cities, and it's something that we've talked a little bit about here in Denver as well. Here's a question that's not directly on point, but I'm going to read it anyway. Is raising the minimum wage on the table? That's not part of this specific proposal, but there's a group that is trying to get an increase of the minimum wage on the ballot for this November. Colorado's minimum wage right now is $8.31 an hour, and that proposal would take the minimum wage up to $12 an hour over the next few years, 12 by 20, $12 an hour by the year 2020. How can the city help to control the price of units in the open market? Rent is too high for most of us to afford. Colorado is a state that does not allow rent control. Many cities and many states around the country do, but we don't. As we've been discussing, where we can control the market is the encouragement, enticement, and creation of new affordable housing units, and that's what we're here to talk about today. All right, I'm going to turn it back over. Yes. The answer is yes.
Thanks. That is a state law, so you could either talk to the state legislators or you could do a petition process for a state ballot measure. Those would be the two ways to change a state law, and so but it would require state action. So we're going to have about 15 minutes of questions, so I just want to let folks know, and then we're going to do the clicker exercise. Yeah, your state representative, state senator, or a ballot measure would be an option. So, yep, it is a really important option that's not available right now. Yep. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue with the questions because we have a lot of them and we won't get through them all. So I know it's hard. We are not going to be able to have an open mic discussion with this many folks. We will have some more of that in the breakout. So I know it's hard with this many people, but we're going to use the cards so we can get through more questions. What's the actual need for housing? It seems like the plan might be based on just what you can afford. And there is some truth to that. We don't have an exact number of housing units that are needed, because if I build a housing unit, for example, that someone who earns $10,000 or $15,000 a year can afford, someone who earns more than that, maybe earns 20 or 30, might snatch it up. So you can't keep people in just one level of housing. People are moving all the time. We have population coming in. So here's what we know. We know how many people are struggling with housing, and it's more than 80,000. So those of you who got your handouts on the way in the door, you have this number in front of you. 80,000 people, more than 80,000 people in Denver are earning less than $64,000 a year, and they are struggling with housing. They're paying too much, more than a third of their income, and that means they're at risk of either getting displaced, of bankruptcy, of not paying for medicine. So now, not each of those people necessarily needs a new unit. Some of them are students who might be, in a transition phase of their life, but so the need is greater than what we are proposing, and we acknowledge that. Our goal is to make an impact, and we need to keep thinking of more and bigger things to do to keep growing the impact. Can any of these dollars be used to leverage other sources like federal and state dollars? Yes. The proposal to get to 6,000 units requires federal dollars for almost every single rental unit. So we plan to use the federal tax credit program to combine with these local dollars. In a lot of ways, these dollars are replacing money that the federal government used to give to the city and doesn't anymore, but we will be leveraging dollars. How can a young person afford to rent or buy housing when you only work 20 hours a week? I think that is a challenge that has to do with both wages and housing, so we've talked some about that. There was a question about displacement. One of the things that we are very aware of is that we want to be keeping people in their homes in addition to getting folks into affordable housing. Denver has a property tax rebate program for low-income seniors and low-income disabled folks. You pay your property taxes and then you can apply to the city for a rebate. If you are interested in learning more about that, you should ask at the resource table, or you should go to the property tax breakout where you can learn more about that. But we do also have programs to help homeowners who need to do critical repairs. If you're really low income and you need a new roof or a new furnace for your house to be safe and livable, there is a program through the Denver Urban Renewal Authority. So we have some of those options. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to someone else to answer a couple.
Good evening. My name's Chris Connor. I'm with Denver's Road Home, the program administrator. I really appreciate this question, probably coming from one of the 12% who identified themselves as experiencing homelessness in this room. Has the city considered the Housing First method that Salt Lake City started to serve the homeless citizens of Denver? If so, when will this be implemented? I hear about Salt Lake City quite a bit. For those unfamiliar with Housing First, not to overcomplicate it, it's much like it sounds like. Meet people with housing on the front end, and then provide them invitation to wraparound services once that housing's been established. Salt Lake City has been a leader in this. Philosophically, not much disagreement between Salt Lake City and Denver. We've been doing Housing First for a number of years here in Denver, longer than 8 years that I've been engaged in this work. But it's a philosophy that's resource dependent, and that's why I'm so excited to be here tonight, talking about how we create those housing resources so that we can implement that philosophy well, like Salt Lake City has been doing. Another question about initiatives of individuals in homelessness with health issues and below federal poverty level or on disability and what's being done in that respect. Throughout the region in homelessness work, we have tremendous partnerships all the way from Thornton to Boulder to Aurora and many of the other major cities, trying to determine where and what process do we use to queue the requests for housing as they're coming in. That process is called a coordinated entry and assessment system, so that there's going to be no wrong door no matter which agency, which county you're arriving to throughout the region. You'll be asked the same questions, and those are questions about health condition, which help us kind of guide the process for queuing up units available to those who are in most need of them on a health basis. So health really does guide our decisions about how we manage the resources we do have in housing in homelessness. I'll move this on down to Rich.
Good evening. I'm Rick Padilla, the Director of Housing for the City of Denver. I'm happy to, if I can, I didn't hear that last question before I get started. I have 6 questions here, and I want to get through them, because, again, to be respectful of your time. But first of all, I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here. As the mayor said, we're at a crossroads in our city around housing, the housing crisis. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and your kids that have to go to school tomorrow to join us tonight. So whoever asked that last question? All right. Here. Let me get to that, okay? Let me get through these questions. First question is, it used to be that affordability housing, mortgage and rent should be a maximum of 25% of your household income. What we're talking about are what's kind of defined as cost burden, which they look at cost burden if you're spending more than 30% of your gross income, if you're spending more than 30% of your gross income on rental and housing costs plus utilities. Some are beginning to say we ought to include transportation costs in that as well. So it's not 25%, it's 30% of your gross income on household costs and utilities. Second question. Are loans for building one part of the housing crisis? Of the $150 million that the councilwoman and the mayor spoke of, yes, loans will be a part of as we build out that structure. There's an issue of declining federal resources. We do have to look at the sustainability so we can continue to build going forward. Third question. How's affordable housing being allocated? Will there be any guarantee that Denver's residents now will get priorities over people moving in from other states? No, there's some constitutional issues around that, so we can't do that. Next question. Communities are being displaced right now. Basically, what is the plan for the city to address this for residents? We will be releasing a study on displacement and gentrification very shortly. It's under final review, and we have a strategy that we're building out around that. That's a great question. Thank you. Next question. How do you decide where these units are built? Gentrification, we will be issuing a study, a gentrification study. It'll be displaced. We haven't finished it. It hasn't been. It'll be released shortly. Thank you. Let's move to the next question. How do you decide where these units are built? The city's put together a very sophisticated mapping system. We're looking across the city in terms of where prior investments have been, demographics of changing communities. There's lots of variables that are going into that. So we have a very strategic approach to it to make some data-driven decision-making as well as political considerations of communities. Final question is, are there funding options, resources available to help small developers to bring low-income housing units online? These are really single-family homes. We have a number of resources today, including the Revolving Affordable Housing Loan Fund that the mayor spoke of. We have dedicated funding resources that we can use, the future funding, the permanent source, the inclusionary housing ordinance. We also have, and you have to look at this from 2 directions. One, assistance to home buyers, down payment assistance. We have nonprofit partners out there that are providing that, as well as construction assistance to develop the affordable units. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I'm going to take a couple questions here quick. My name is Laura Brzezinski with Denver's Office of Economic Development, our housing agency, and I'm going to answer just a couple of questions about the development impact fee proposal. The first question was, the Denver currently does not have any development impact fees on commercial or residential development. That is true. We do not have impact fees in the way described here that are currently used. We have a very small area called Gateway, where we do have one impact fee used there. So this is not a type of fee that we have used historically in Denver. Some of our metro communities do use impact fees in the way that they're proposed. Boulder is the only metro area community that uses it for the purpose of affordable housing development. So that is true. We do not use these fees in Denver on commercial or residential development as of yet. And the second question was how much of the development fee is used in Seattle and Boston. So in communities across the country, we see a range of different fees. In some of the cities on the East Coast, we see a smaller fee in the $1 or $2 range. In Boston, it's actually $8, and that's only applied to commercial developments in Boston. In Seattle, they're still in the process of implementing this fee, but they have fees in the range of $5 to about $17. And as Councilwoman Kniech mentioned earlier, typically when we're doing a nexus study on these, we get a legally justified fee that is much higher than what communities actually charge on development. So those are just two examples of cities, but we definitely see a range in terms of what other communities charge.
Good evening. Brendan Hanlon, I'm the city's Chief Financial Officer, and the one question I'm going to cover is what initiatives is the city implementing to protect current and existing homeowners from rising property values and taxes? So those of you who are going to be joining me for a property tax session down the hall in a little bit, I have a handout here that is available to describe the refund program for senior and disabled citizens on your property taxes. I have information as to who can qualify for that program as well as how to apply for it. And this is an annual program. Back during the ballot measure for 2A, it was one of the programs that we doubled the investment in. So this used to be a program that we invested $650,000 in, and that is now approximately $1.2 million each year that is available for this program. So I'll have that information in the breakout session.
Okay, my question that I'm probably going to end on so we can get your feedback on the survey is that how will you ensure affordable housing throughout the city? This is a really hard challenge for us because some neighborhoods are very built out. They might have a lot of single-family homes, not a lot of empty lots, not a lot of spaces to put new housing. And so we have other neighborhoods that might have large pieces of land, big redevelopment projects. If you think about the places in our city where we have large hospitals that have left the city, St. Anthony's, we're going to be putting a lot of affordable housing in that former site. The site of the old CU hospital on 9th in Colorado is another place. So we look for opportunities where land becomes available. We look at areas like the new land that's coming up by our train stations. We prioritize a lot around transit-oriented development, and we have partners in the room who help to hold land near transit, because we know if you can live near transit, you can save money on your housing and your transportation. We really try to have a balance of housing throughout the city, and as an at-large representative, I'm citywide. I can say that there is new housing going in the West Colfax neighborhood, in South Federal and the South Side. There's north housing going in at Colorado Boulevard. There's also some going in near downtown along the Welton corridor. So we really are seeing it in various pieces of the city. This is one area where I want to call upon all of you. We need communities to invite and welcome affordable housing. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes we get communities who are concerned and maybe have challenges, and having folks who they feel may be different than them or from different economic backgrounds. One way that we can get housing in all parts of the city is to have all of you who are here today who care about this being engaged in your communities when development is being talked about and when affordable housing is being proposed, to help embrace it and welcome it. We know that many of us live in the city because we love the diversity in the city. We don't want to live in a suburb. We're here for a reason. And that diversity is under risk if we can't have integrated, diverse communities. So we think that this is beneficial, not just the folks who live in the housing, but for me as a mom, I have a 7-year-old son. I think it's so important for him to grow up with people from all different backgrounds and interacting in his school and in his park. So we all have a role to play, actually, in this one, and I want to put it back on all of us as well as the city to work on that. I want to just, okay, that's okay. I forgot to acknowledge we have Councilman New has a representative. He's the councilman from District 10 in Cap Hill. He has staff here in the room, and I wanted to acknowledge them. I want to say we had a lot more questions than we were able to get through today. We're going to create a frequently asked questions document, and we will post that on the website, my office website, as well as the mayor's office website, perhaps, or the Office of Economic Development Housing website. They're nodding. And so if you got those handouts on the way in, or you want to grab a business card on the way out, you can either call those numbers, give us maybe a week or two to do that, call those numbers or check those websites, and we will put answers to the questions we didn't get to today, as well as some of them that we did answer, because we know others are interested as well. But we need to close this portion so we can get your feedback now. So we're going to go to the survey again. Those of you with a white handout.
Discussion about the destruction of affordable units enabled by the zoning code. 900 square foot houses torn down, 400 square foot houses built on that very lot. If you destroy houses at the same rate that you're bringing on affordable housing, it's going to be a zero-sum game.
So the comment was, if you have to keep an eye on losing housing at the same time you're building new housing, and I think we agree, and that is a priority, the idea of preservation, helping people stay in those smaller homes, and those are all strategies. This is not the city's only housing proposal, it's just the next one, and it's the one that we're focused on tonight. But that comment and any other comments, these white cards, please keep filling them out with feedback like that. It's really important. And then there will be more discussion in the breakout. So now is the time we're going to ask you to weigh in a little bit. So you've heard about the two funding sources, right? You've heard about the small property tax, and you've heard about the one-time fee on new development. Okay, keeping those two in mind. I want to know if you have a preference between those two sources. So A is if you really, really like the property tax, and E is if you really like the linkage fee, okay? So A is if you really like the property tax. If you only like it a little bit, it's B. If you think they should be even, you would put C. C is I think they are about even. I would like about the money to come from both of them, all right? Now, if you don't like either of the sources and you'd like us to do a different source, you will choose letter F. If you think we shouldn't be using any sources and you just don't think we should be paying for affordable housing, that's an option, letter G. And then letter H is I just don't have an opinion. So A is for property tax, C is for an even split, E is for linkage, F is I don't like them, charge us something else, G is for no funding, H is no opinion. And I know it's hard to see, so I'm going to go ahead and read these so that folks can follow along. All right, closing in 5, 4, 3, 2. The development fee, yes, the development fee. Sorry, we tried to be consistent with our wording, but we made a few errors, and I appreciate everyone's patience tonight. Sorry. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This room really liked a balance of both with maybe a little more preference for the development fee. Okay, very good feedback. Next question. Thinking just about this development fee. Now you can charge a residential fee on various kinds of new housing, and I want to know which kinds of housing you think we should charge. And can they choose all of them? The technology works for this one. So if you think we should charge a fee on all of these, you can choose every single letter. Just do them in order. If you only think we should charge it on one, just choose that letter, okay? So you can choose as many or as few as you want. We've got apartments as A, condos as B, townhomes and duplexes that are new as C, single-family homes that are new as D. These would be in places where there wasn't housing before, out by the airport, for example, or other areas where there isn't any housing. The gentleman who asked about tearing down older homes, that would be E. If you want to charge this fee when a home is torn down and a new one is built in its place, you would choose E. So please choose as many of these as you would like. A, B, C, D, E, closing in 3, 2, 1. Wow. All right. Pretty evenly split. Good feedback. Next question. So these development fees are pretty common in other cities, and they're charged on commercial mostly. Go ahead, next. So thinking about residential and commercial now, do you have any preference about how much of the development fee comes from commercial versus residential? So A is all of it coming from residential. Charge the housing, but don't charge the commercial. All right? And E is the opposite end. E is charge only the commercial, but don't charge the residential. Okay? And then C is right in the middle. So if you think we should charge it about equally about the money should come from both fairly equally, you would choose C. So if you're more on the residential, go for A. If you're more on the commercial, go for E. And if you're evenly split, go for C. And closing in 3, 2, 1. Okay, we like a split with a little more on the commercial side. Well, a lot more, actually. A lot more on the commercial side. Good feedback. All right, next. You saw some data on how many people were housing burdened, right? We showed you that chart that said about 80,000 people are housing burdened. And we have to choose, it's a limited resource, if we should have some priorities on how we spend this money. So I talked with you about our goal of spending it on a range of different things. I want you to think about, next, where we should be prioritizing. So A would be everyone under 100% of median income. That's $80,000. So should we be including families up to $80,000? If you agree with that, choose A. Each of these, by the way, goes lower. So each goes lower, okay? And it includes, so B would be, no, you should stop at families earning $60,000 for a family of 4. C is, you should stop at folks earning $40,000 a year. You should stop there. Focus those resources down. D is you should focus only on the lowest income. You should focus only on folks earning less than 30% of income. So that's just the lowest. So A is the highest income, and it goes down from there. And you can say, I don't know. You can say F if you don't know. All right? So we're going to close this survey. Choose if you were the city, if you were giving us advice, how would you like us to prioritize these funds? Closing in 3, 2, 1. I know. Okay, I will try to go a little slower. Sorry. Trying to make sure we have time for our breakouts as well. So it looks like there was a pretty strong preference for B, C, and D. So kind of, and with the most folks going for the folks earning $40,000 or less. Okay, not as much support for the highest income. Okay, next question. So our proposal, as I shared with you and you have in your handout, is to kind of stop at that 80% of median income, the folks earning in the $60,000 range for a family of 4. It would be in the 50s probably for a smaller family. And so I want to go next slide. So if you would put your priorities here, so let's assume that the limit is that those families earning at that top level, but we still have to decide how to distribute the funds among. How would you prioritize? A is homeless housing with services. B is low-income rental for very low-income folks, maybe on disability, very low wages, maybe the person who's only working 10 hours, 15 hours a week. C is workers who are earning more. Maybe these are your medical techs, your daycare providers, maybe your entry-level teachers, but they're still struggling. D is home ownership. So this is one where you're going to push in order, top 3. So you want to choose the one that was the top priority first, hit that letter, then your next priority second, then your third priority. Okay? So do them in order, top, second, third. And whatever 3 you push last will be recorded. So it's okay if you mess up or change your mind. Okay. Homeless A. B is rental for very low income. C is rental for those still struggling but a little more income. D is home ownership. E is something else, if we didn't mention it. All right, closing in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so again, good distribution here. More preference, it seems like, for the rental product than the for sale product in this room. Okay, next. So we've talked about doing 6,000 homes. This is your chance to react to this proposal. All right? So think about the size and think about the impact we've described. A, we shouldn't even be doing this. I don't believe in it. Tax money shouldn't go for this. We should do something, but it's too much. So if you're not very supportive of what you heard, you're going to start at the A or B level. If you think that we're doing it just about right, you're going to be at C. If you think we need to be doing more, you're going to be at D and E. E is we should be doing much more. So A is don't do anything, and E is do a whole lot more, okay? So find your way. If you think we got it about right with our goal right now, choose C. And if you have no opinion, that's always an option. You can choose F. Okay. So what do folks think? 3, 2, 1. Well, our work is cut out for us. Okay. So the next question, how supportive? So that first one was really about the size, but now I want you to think about everything. Think about the sources and think about the overall package. Maybe you wish the size was more, but you feel like we got the sources about right. All right? How supportive do you feel about the proposal so far? Okay? A is very supportive. E is not supportive at all. If you're kind of so-so, you're going to be in the middle at C. Okay, how supportive? Closing in 3, 2, 1. Okay, we got a lot of support in the room. That's very encouraging. We've got some neutral, though. We got a lot of neutral folks to work with and help answer questions for. Okay, going on to number 8. This is the same question you answered before. Does everyone remember I asked you how, or actually Derek asked you, how important is it that we invest new local dollars into affordable housing? This is your chance to change your mind or tell us that everything you've heard just basically affirmed what you already said. So you answered this once before. We're just asking you to answer it again. How important is it for us to invest local city dollars in affordable housing? A is strongly agree. It's very important. G is strongly disagree. And I'm going to close this one in 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, that's a lot of good support for moving forward. Thank you. All right. 9. We want to know how we did. I might cry if the answer to this one is no. Did you learn anything new tonight at all? Did you learn something about the need for housing, something about what the city's doing, something about what we're planning to do? If you learned something new, we hopefully have achieved at least one of our goals. This just also helps us make sure you're still awake for the breakout. All right, A, yes, B, no, not sure. Closing in 3, 2, 1. All right, good, thank you. We probably learned as much from you with your questions and your answers, so thank you. I learned something. Was this meeting helpful? Do you feel like you learned something? You may not have learned everything you needed. Was it helpful? Was it a good start? Or no, not a good use of your time? This is honest feedback for us as we plan one more of these. So was the meeting helpful? We want to know. A, yes. B, no. C, not sure. Closing in 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you very much for that honest feedback. So I want to remind folks to continue to fill out cards if you have them. We will continue to take them. I want to turn it back over to Derek, who's going to direct us to the breakout groups. And so follow his directions. Please don't rush for the door because it'll make it impossible for people to hear. So please, if you can wait just a second till the instructions are done, and then if you need to leave, we understand. Resources and food will be open.
Okay, we have 3 breakouts. First one, we'll talk about the use of the funds, go into more detail. That'll stay here. If you are interested in that one, the use of the funds, stay here. Property tax, the one that Brendan Hanlon, our finance officer, chief finance officer, will run, will be in room 119. And how you get there is you go all the way down by the front doors, and you take that hallway to the left where the resource tables are. It's the last table, it's the last room to your left at the end of the hallway. Next one, the linkage fee. Talking about the linkage fee. That will be in room 121. Same direction, end of the hallway to the left, and it'll be the 3rd room from the left. Okay. I want to, before you leave, if those of you who are here, let's give a big hand to the staff. They put a lot of work into this. Our facilities folks, the other folks who helped put this all together. And again, in 2 weeks, we'll get those questions summarized and posted. We will more than likely put it on the Economic Development Housing webpage. Okay? Thank you all.